Hey everyone, before we get started with the video, I wanted to say if you like the content I'm putting out for the channel, please feel free to subscribe and comment on what else you'd like to see on this channel going forward. Yes, Samurai Jack. If you ever grew up with cartoons in the early 2000s, you must remember this show.
Shut it!
It's a redemption story for the titular character, Samurai Jack, and his journey to slay the shape-shifting master of darkness, Aku. The series spans 5 seasons and was recently concluded in 2017. I actually made a whole retrospective series on it, reviewing every episode because this series is the almost perfect marriage between serialization and episodic storytelling. For those that watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, the series, not that god-awful train wreck of a film,
all airbenders should be dead. Kill him!
you had this overarching narrative of a war. It was the main focus, the main quest line. However, every episode was confined to a particular place and subject matter that was tangentially tied to that war. It's a really great way to have the best of both worlds. In the case of Samurai Jack, the general premise of the show is that our hero was sent into the distant future and has to make his way back to the past to right all the wrong Aku plagued onto the world. Beating Aku is the main goal, the main quest line, and along the way, we get to see all the people Jack gets to help, all the lives he's changed for the better, and the impact and legacy he will leave. It's a very amazing journey that has the possibilities for endless storytelling. One episode, he's playing up the role of a mobster to fight elemental gods. Another, he's fighting robot hornets in space. And another, he's fighting alongside Spartans against a giant arcane war machine that aims to destroy all the natural resources. It's a series that has stood the test of time and will most likely keep standing because of its careful writing, even though the story is simply a tale of good versus evil, or better put, the black and white morality trope. Hello everyone, my name is Noble Absinthe, and today we'll be talking about one of the most notable tropes in the series, black and white morality, in Samurai Jack. I have to assume every video of mine is someone's first video on my channel, so it needs to be said. What's a trope?
What's a paladin?
Well, a trope is a literary device or component used to help tell a story. They're not cliches. A cliche is a trope that has been used so many times that it's gotten annoying and played out. Remember this, all cliches are tropes, not all tropes are cliches. An example of a cliche would be something like racial stereotypes that no one believes in anymore.
Spaghetti, ravioli, fried rice, wonton soup, grape soda, menthol cigarettes.
I don't know, maybe a bagel and lox? I haven't thought about it yet. I'll have to see how I feel. Where would I even get a good bagel in this fakakta mushroom kingdom? Oy, gavalt, who knows?
Or really anything that is outdated. Whereas a trope is more timeless, like the 5-man band, hero's journey, or the focus of this video, black and white morality. Some of these might seem like cliches to you, but that's because it's a nebulous concept. Things only become cliches when they've become annoying, which is a relative concept to even the viewer. Writing is fascinating in this regard, hence why I talk about them. It's just interesting that you can name every component of a show or media. With that being said, let's get right into this. Now, what is black and white morality? Well, it's essentially polar opposite forces fighting against one another. You have good versus evil, God and Satan, yin and yang, Jedi versus Sith, lawful good versus chaotic evil. And in the case of Samurai Jack, well, it's Jack versus Aku. It's an iconic form of storytelling. The mighty hero will vanquish the evil of the land. And that's essentially the narrative for Samurai Jack. You know right from the very start who are the heroes and who are the villains. From the very first episode, we're told by our hero's father what Aku is. He's this demonic force of bad stuff, and don't worry, we'll get a whole 2 episodes on his backstory, but he's essentially this ageless evil. In contrast to this, our hero is a young boy, which is simply the best possible proxy character for the show. Not only is it an analog for the primary demographic for the show, kids are also just impressionable and innocent. Jack is meant to grow up into the hero the world needs, and he does. Through the teachings of great masters and good parenting, he's the definition of purity and righteousness. His magic sword, crafted by the gods, won't even work if used by an impure soul. So this is as clean cut of good versus evil that you can get. Now, one of the contentious points of this trope is that morally good and morally bad characters aren't interesting. They can't be interesting because no one is absolutely good or evil. This is why a lot of political campaigns are so annoying. They try to paint the other candidate like they were born right out of Satan's womb, but you know it's all hyperbole.
A person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10.
So you treat women with respect?
I can't say that either.
All right, good.
Hell, even the story about God and Lucifer is really just about a simple disagreement turning into both sides taking the good versus evil ideology. Audience members like shades of gray. No, not the book, but semblances of humanity. Look at how Hideo Kojima constantly glorifies his stories with shades of gray morality, since war as a concept is such a controversial topic. Are we actually fighting the good fight, or are we the bad guys? I'm definitely a fan of shades of gray storytelling. One of my favorite characters in anime is Hajime Saito from Rurouni Kenshin. He portrays the noble demon trope and practices the philosophy of Aku Zoko-san. Hey, look at that, which means slay evil immediately. Sounds like a morally black and white philosophy, right? Well, it would be if it wasn't for the fact that he is the one to dictate good and evil. Sometimes he's in the right and goes after crime bosses, but other times he's more than willing to kill legally innocent people that just get in his way. Side note, he's also a police officer. That's just creepy and insane and awesome all at the same time. Shades of Grey is a really great way to tell stories. Most people believe that staying moderate and tilting to one side or the other is the best way to stay reasonable and down to earth. That might be the case for the real world, but in storytelling, you need to have a strong virtue, whether it's in the shades of gray or in the black and white morality. The thing about writing is that the devil is in the details. The actions and the way in which the story is presented are what matter the most. Everything is case by case. Look at Batman and the Joker. It's essentially the story of good versus evil, black and white morality, with the evil Joker just wanting the good Batman to crack and become a morally gray character. The Joker wants Bruce to cross that line, to snap the Joker's neck like in The Killing Joke. Is it good to kill evil people when your justice system is so flawed? You see, there's potential to make black and white morality very interesting. This is why black and white morality hasn't gone away yet. I mean, look at the textbook amount of quotes just on the concept of it. Now, rerouting back to the main show of focus, what makes Samurai Jack interesting isn't so much that it's the classic good versus evil plot, but how it decides to run with that concept. The story could have simply ended in episode 1. Jack learns from all the best masters of the world, gets his magic sword from his mom, then just cleaves Aku and wins. But the story wasn't over. As the story progresses, we get to see the exact dynamic between Jack and Aku. You see, these characters aren't in pure isolation from one another. Unlike something like Legend of Zelda, where Ganondorf is only seen in small glimpses or a few one-off moments to hype up the final boss fight, in Samurai Jack, we frequently get to see Jack and Aku fight, or in some cases talk. Hell, even when in isolation, they're still on screen. We see how Aku hates Jack with a hammy rage, and Jack just stays reserved. These characters are foils to one another. They help make the other shine by contrast, and that's where I find the concept of black and white morality so interesting. Jack is meant to be this good Samaritan that always has to do the right thing. He's polite, quiet, and modest. In contrast to this, Aku is just pure evil. He's a comically over-the-top totalitarian. He uses a robot army crafted by Hitler and Dr. Robotnik to enslave and murder people. He demands tribute, respect, and pure obedience, and if you don't comply, you just die. Even though Aku checks out as being the ideal bad guy, he elevates it even further by being extremely childish. He shouts and screams, toys around with Jack. He even held a mandatory story time in a huge gymnasium of children just to badmouth him.
There was an almighty, all-powerful wizard, and there was a pathetic little samurai, and the wizard destroyed him! the end!
Nah, that's not how it would happen.
The show constantly comes back to this trope. In the 48th episode, Jack vs. Aku, Aku comes dangerously close to breaking the fourth wall, something that writers only do on rare occasions to mix it up, and it's used textbook here. Aku admits to Jack the story is getting a bit old, and basically recites the formula for the entire show. Jack travels for a long time, finds Aku, they fight, Aku will get cut down but will eventually just run away and force Jack to travel again. The story can go on like this forever since Aku can't kill Jack because of that magic sword, and Jack can't finish off Aku because he's constantly running away. It's the yin and yang philosophy. One can't exist without the other. Seasons 1 through 4 ran with this concept for a long time and constantly tried to reinvent itself. In season 1, Aku transforms into a sexy lady named Ikra to accompany Jack in finding this magic jewel that can send him back in time. Obviously, by the end of the episode, Aku takes the magic jewel and smashes it into pieces, crushing Jack's hopes and dreams. In season 3, this plot is actually revisited. Aku parodies a form of Yoda so he and Jack can collect 3 magic jewels that could potentially send him back in time. But this time, Jack knew it was Aku and slices him apart. This is a great way to show character growth for Jack, as it would be unfair for him to get tricked the same way twice. And unlike other shows that have to implement flashbacks to make it concrete character development, it's just something you can see when you look at the series macroscopically, looking at the big picture, but only for seasons 1 to 4. Season 5 of Samurai Jack deals with a tonal and just an overall structural shift. I loved season 5 regardless though. The writers wanted to focus on this relationship between Jack and Ashi, which I felt was paced out very well. I haven't met a Samurai Jack fan that didn't love Ashi. My fiance got her start on Samurai Jack from season 5 and was absolutely in love with their dynamic.
Yes. Oh, something's poking me.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
A super power couple that can kick ass together. So hot. Season 5 was serialized, which meant that the story was continuous, always leaving on a cliffhanger to keep you watching. If you didn't like the first episode in season 5, you were gonna have a bad time. In my opinion, I got on board for the ride and enjoyed every episode, but it's a clear departure from the serialization plus episodic storytelling of the original 4 seasons. You know what else was also a departure from the original? The introduction of gray morality. In season 5, Ashi is a stand-in for Aku, but doesn't fulfill the same role. Instead of being a pure antagonist to Jack and staying a static character, she actually starts off as an antagonist and then becomes his waifu. It's clear that Ashi is essentially a nega Jack. She was trained all her life for the sole purpose of killing a powerful figure. She was raised evil. I mean, just look at how savage she is. She's all coated in black and stabs one of her teachers in the face. And she's aiming to kill the hero we just spent 4 seasons, a decade of waiting with, and firmly established that he's Japanese Jesus. Ashi goes through a character arc. She learns that Samurai Jack is a good guy by reincorporating characters from prior seasons and by going on adventures with him. She becomes a good person on the right side and wants to fight Aku, but she still retains her savage ways from her upbringing. Ashi maims and kills an entire army bare-handed. So hot. Well, what about Jack? Well, after spending so much time in the future, Jack's mind has changed and become fractured. We see him constantly arguing with his former self, or a reflection of what he thinks he's meant to be. Since the series decided to be serialized, you need to have your main character also go through an arc, right? Well, I disagree with that. Jack was as clean-cut and standard as you can get. He was the stable good guy. I mean, look at him. He's Japanese Jesus, dressed in all white, fighting the embodiment of darkness. This is yin and yang we're talking about here. Jack's major change in the series is by dipping his feet into the morally gray, by killing the daughters of Aku, save for Ashi, which means he didn't go full Sith on us. Oh, and he killed a few goats. Samurai Jack just doesn't kill people. He kills robots, which allow our hero to get away with being covered head to toe in robot blood. Oil, you know what I mean. If he does fight people, Cartoon Network hand waves it away by saying, oh, they're just knocked out. Jack's whole arc in season 5 is about how he felt like he sullied his purity of heart and has to come to terms with himself to overcome his own mental baggage so he can become an enlightened soul again. By doing so, he gets his sword back, and with the help of a in-control Ashi, finally defeats Aku, the still clear-cut bad guy.
It is done.
Season 5 is just very different than the prior ones. This isn't bad writing by any means, it's just a clear contrast of how the writing went from black and white morality with Jack and Aku to shades of gray with Ashi and Jack's character arcs, and then back to black and white morality with Jack and Ashi fighting Aku, then ending again with shades of gray since killing Aku causes our Ashi to die. The season flip-flops on the original premise of the show, that being black and white morality, and ends on a sad note. Season 5 introduces us to a great new character for the sole purpose of killing her off. If she had been around since season 1 or 2, this would have had a much more monumental impact. It would have been insanely painful. But sadly, in season 5, she had to become a fully realized character. If she wasn't, her death wouldn't have mattered at all. It's just sad for Jack and us as the audience to deal with losing Ashi. The creator, Jenny Tartovsky, stands by this sad ending, because at the end of the day, life just happens, which is something very suited for the realistic tones from a Shades of Grey morality story. However, sometimes it's just nice to have a story where the hero defeats the final boss and everything just works out. But apparently, that's too simple, and writers need to be as subversive as possible. In conclusion, black and white morality is a trope in storytelling, usually revolving around good and evil. Black and white morality is not necessarily inferior to Shades of Grey morality, it's just different. Lastly, at the end of the day, it's all about how you use the trope to your advantage. Just don't keep flip-flopping between the two. Well, hopefully I've convinced you to give Samurai Jack another watch through and just enjoy some really amazing animation and storytelling. The series is very near and dear to my heart, and while I have my gripes on season 5 being such a departure and, the death of my beloved Ashi, I love the entire adventure. If you're a sub to my channel, I know this is a little bit out of the blue, but I love making tangential rants, and this video essay is more of a test run of a series I want to get started. I'm really interested in deconstructing and finding out what works in a piece of media, and tropes are literally every single gear and screw. After doing 2 retrospectives, my Channel Awesome and Samurai Jack one, I found that I love analyzing why something works or doesn't work. You see, I recently came across a pretty unique definition for reviewers and critics. A reviewer is focused on product, and a critic is focused on process and product. I love to know the components, intent, and execution of anything and give appreciation for it, or, just make fun of it. So yes, thank you everyone who watched this video, and tell me your favorite episode of Samurai Jack. I still have voting up for the best episode of Samurai Jack, so click on that video. Tell me what series I should cover next, or maybe a single trope to explain. I'm always up for suggestions, and please feel free to comment. I do read all of them. With that being said, have a good day.